Yeah, absolutely. Anything we can do to make it easier to support our person is awesome.
You are listening to The Alzheimer's Podcast with Mike Good of Togetherness, your number one resource for practical tips and insights, empowering you and your family to live well with Alzheimer's. Hello, I'm Mike Good of Togetherness. Welcome to episode 49 of The Alzheimer's Podcast. My goal is always to empower you to maintain a positive experience, reduce and eliminate the need for medications, and make your time together with those you care for the best it can be. For the last couple of episodes, Christy Turner and I have been discussing how to bring the various aspects of memory care into your home to help you delay or completely avoid the need to move your loved one into a professional memory care community. For many reasons, including the fact that the average memory care community in the United States is about $100,000 annually, this can be your best choice. However, it's going to take a lot of planning and hard work, but if it's what you want, you can do it. Now, in this episode, we'll discuss more actionable things you can do to make your home dementia friendly. These things are based on my signature course, Adapting Your Home for Dementia, where I teach students how to adapt and manage 4 elements of the home. These include safety, function, stimulation, and eliminating triggers which result in negative outcomes or behaviors. And in today's episode, we discuss element 2 of the dementia-friendly home, function. Function is a home's ability to meet the needs of its residents and empowers a person to safely complete tasks on their own or with minimal assistance. Maybe for the caregiver, that's a wash basin for cleaning soiled clothing, or for the person with dementia, a simplified way to enjoy gardening. Either way, it's about adapting your home to meet the needs of all residents. I'm curious, Christy, have you ever heard anyone use the term functionality in dementia care before?
Well, absolutely, but probably most people don't use it because I think most of our listeners probably don't work in skilled nursing.
All right, well, good. I took it from my wife, who's an interior designer.
Ah, another way to look at functionality.
Yeah, and so I have that background, and I haven't seen any articles or anything that really talk to what I call functionality for the dementia-friendly home. So I'm excited to also see what your wisdoms and thoughts are about it. The goal with functionality is to create an environment which prolongs our loved one's ability to perform activities of daily living. And by doing this, we help maintain a sense of purpose through fulfilling and enjoyable activities. With functionality, the home works for you by meeting your needs. Things such as just simply being able to reach the glasses up on the top shelf, where that may have been easier when we were younger. Now we have to get up on a stool or something. The home's not functional, and homes aren't built with functionality in mind. So as someone has special or unique needs, such as dementia, the home really stops meeting our needs. And our goal today is to help our listeners understand how to make the home prolong a person's independence in the house. Does that make sense?
Well, I have to say, as a lifelong short person, I have noticed that homes are not necessarily functional.
Right.
So, yeah, absolutely. Anything we can do to make it easier to support our person is awesome.
And functionality also, it's about making the home functional for the care partner. As well, safety was also about the care partner, because the dementia-friendly home has to have these things in place for anybody living in the home. And these needs for functionality may be, physical, such as reaching the glasses on the top shelf, as I mentioned, or emotional, such as a school teacher whose dementia is more advanced and she needs to feel that need to go to work each day, although she hasn't taught in years. And I'll go into what we do to address that in a little bit. So non-functional elements of the home, that puts us in any of the residents in danger and hinders our ability to perform tasks. And, this results in injury and possibly negative emotions. And we want to avoid those. So, because it's important for us to keep everyone safe and avoid those negative emotions, we want to turn failure points into success. And that's what functionality is going to do for us.
Well, great. Tell me more.
So examples of a lack of functionality, similar to the glasses being up on the top shelf, is like if things are hidden away. We kind of talked about this on, under safety. If we hide things away or we prevent access to something, then the house isn't being functional when someone can't find what they're looking for. Oftentimes with dementia care, we hear about people labeling cabinets so that their loved ones can find things easier. That's an example of helping people overcome not remembering where things are hidden. Maybe there's too much stuff or too many choices in the house, and we want to minimize that. Or maybe processes are too complex. In the instance of the school teacher I talked about, there's nowhere for her to sit down and do her school teacher or his school teacher kind of activities. So those are examples of lack of functionality. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think everybody needs a purpose, a reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Functionality is also about caregivers and the care partners. So, it's about making things so things are within reach, so that lighting and doorknobs work for us, because sometimes doorknobs are hard to turn as we age. We're getting more arthritis in our hands. Or we have lighting in the house that helps us read or helps us see things as we navigate through the house safely, because inadequate lighting is actually one thing that it goes across all elements of a dementia-friendly home. If it's dark, we have a safety issue. If it's not bright enough, we can't read something. If we can't read something, we're not being stimulated and having fun. And if we're not being stimulated and having fun, we're likely to have we might have a negative emotion and share that with our loved ones.
And I bet they're not going to enjoy that. So it sounds like there's a lot to it, Mike. Like, do you have, this is in the course and in the guide, it's a course, but is there a companion guide that goes with it? Do you have like tips for people on how to improve functionality?
Absolutely. And in the course, not only do I describe better what functionality is all about and how to improve it, but I have worksheets that help people walk through it and assess the home. And when we're doing that, the level of intervention could be small, such as moving the glasses from the top shelf to the lower shelf, or it could be big, such as installing a bigger bathroom in the house so a care partner can better assist their loved one with showering. And we walk through each room of the house and look at that.
Oh, that sounds so helpful, because there's really more to it, I think, than probably we first think, right?
Absolutely. And where we start with, of course, because we're thinking about our loved one, is I recommend that we start with a person-centered focus and I have a person-centered a form that helps lay out everything and put it down on paper. But because every individual has unique needs and desires, but we always need to see things through their eyes. What makes them happy? What difficulties are they having in the home? What can we do to make it better so that they have a successful experience with the home? And so by filling out the person-centered profile, as you say, care partners are the experts on their loved one. But when you put things down on paper, again, it helps us to remember things. Oh, yeah, he used to like woodworking, or, oh, yeah, she used to like to read these novels. And then we can, because as you said under the safety episode, is that once you go and work on something else, the other thing's going to pop up, right? So the care partners need to constantly adapt.
So true.
With the person-centered profile, it can help everyone kind of be in tune with a loved one's needs and preferences. I recommend that people start by just going through the home and assessing the home. Again, how are they interacting with the home? And listen to what do they tell you they want, and understand what interests them.
And so this is a step-by-step part of your program?
It is.
Great, because, I know that people can really start to feel overwhelmed pretty easily, because we don't typically expect, right, that this diagnosis is going to show up, even though we know that it's a fairly common thing now. we just don't, get training for this in school, right?
Right.
There's not a dementia degree. And so it's, I think it's so valuable for care partners to get that level of, I want to say hand-holding, and I don't mean that in a condescending way, but I mean in a helpful way, in a, here, let me show you what to do kind of a way. So that's awesome.
I recommend that care partners start by objectively analyzing like the daily routines with their loved one and create a log of the activities.
I'm sorry, I have to stop you there, Mike, because our listeners might not know, but I think you just kind of gave a little tell when you said objectively analyzing. Yeah, Mike started life as an engineer. I think he was born that way. He can't help it. But this is why he's awesome at systems. So good. You're using it to make the world a better place.
That's great. So, yeah. So if we look at the daily routines with our loved one, and we can log that and just observe, everything from grooming and dressing to what's having fun. And I, again, that's the engineer in me. I've created a form for this.
A form to have fun?
A form to assess. And the form, in the form, for instance, it's like, has a task, and you can put showering and dressing, and next to that I say, well, how does that make you feel? Is it having a successful outcome, or is it having a negative outcome? And
okay, see, now you're starting to sound like a social worker. I love it.
So, okay, good.
How does that make you feel?
and you lay out who's involved in that activity, and what challenges did you observe your loved one or yourself having with that activity. And, we want to be aware, because like for showering, of course, there could be a safety concerns if we're struggling to help our loved one shower, and, log any thoughts or ways to improve the processes. And that's about making the home work better for us. In the shower, for instance, it could be as simple as removing the shower head and putting on a handheld wand.
Right.
That now you've removed an obstacle that could have a negative outcome and replaced it with something that's both functional and maybe more pleasant for your loved one.
Very important.
So you go through all the different, tasks where you observe, and maybe if you're feeling frustrated when you do it, or your loved one feels frustrated with it, you want to try to create an outcome where that negative emotion is no longer.
Right. We don't want to give it a reason to appear, right? Because people feel what they feel, right? They're entitled to their feelings. Dementia isn't a cure for that, but we don't want to elicit negative feelings if we can help it, for sure. That's, when we talk about like creating an awesome day, that we want to create, but not the negative stuff that sounds like is just really pretty easily avoidable. And you've kind of figured out a systematized way to, make the home dementia friendly. Yes?
Yes. And it goes into also, it's not just, it's also the enjoyment part of it, right? It's, if you like to garden, but you don't have any workable land, maybe you can set up container gardening on a patio or something. Or, we talk about the school teacher who wants to go to work, does she have a area in the home that's her work area? Maybe it's the woodworker who likes to play with wood and loves the smell of sawdust. Does he have an area to go to that brings him that enjoyment? Because again, it's all about just creating this environment that helps us maintain a sense of purpose through these fulfilling activities, where that fulfilling activity could just be getting dressed.
Right. So, and this goes back to kind of one of those core principles in dementia care, successful dementia care, which is life is an activity. Life is an activity of doing and being. Right. Okay. So we're just always, and this is why I really encourage family care partners to be in the moment. Again, think about it in any other context. If you're spending time with another person, maybe when you were driving your kids to school, right, as they were going to school over the years, and let you catch so much nuance in those, short trips to drop off and pick up. on the way home. It's not about spending a massive chunk of time, although, it could be, but just doing things together, washing dishes together, or, sitting on the couch together, looking at the patio, looking at the bird feeder, whatever, really create moments that are important. So what a great way that you figured out, Mike, to, make the home an ally in this instead of the enemy.
Yeah, I like how you put that. And function overlaps. All the elements overlap. So function overlaps safety. In our example, for instance, with getting the glasses down, if you have to get up on a step stool, there's a risk of falling. And I know a lady who the exact same thing happened. She did fall off a step ladder.
Oh.
And she recovered well, but then function also overlaps element 3, which is stimulation, which is having this fun and these activities that keep our mind and our spirit moving. But as we go through all these things, we always have to keep adapting and stay creative, right? Because what we do today may not work tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And we have to try things at times that we don't even believe will work because everything's changing. So it might work today. So with that said, I want to kind of go through some examples of some things that you can do to bring function into the home.
Awesome.
And that starts with people that maybe are more, say they're early in the disease and they're experiencing short-term memory issues. And I've learned some of these tips from my friends online that do have dementia and are still actively participating in support groups and have websites and stuff. But some of the things that have helped them, simply a calendar, a nice big calendar put in a visible location of the home. Because now what you can do, family members can help keep it updated and put things on that. Understand that some of these things may work, they may not work, they may work for a short period of time, they may work for a long period of time. But you kind of try it. That way, with a calendar, for instance, the individual, rather than having to wonder if they forgot, if they can, as they remember, they can look at the calendar and see things. You can use whiteboards or chalkboards. Some people try electronic reminders, but the feedback I've received from people with dementia is, since they didn't grow up with electronic reminders, oftentimes they just start ignoring them. And I do too. I start ignoring my reminder. It works great for a week, and then I start ignoring it.
Well, that's a perfect example of what you were saying. Sometimes it just works one time. Right. So it worked for a week.
Right.
Moving on.
Yeah, because and at some point they may not remember the purpose of what the calendar's for and what the whiteboard's for, right? But you can try it. You can definitely try it, and that's an inexpensive thing to try. Other things that happen through the house is they lose things. Things get misplaced or they get stored away where you wouldn't expect to find them. Some of the solutions I've seen we have tracking devices nowadays that you can buy through online retailers that aren't very expensive and work with a cell phone. I'm looking at one on my computer screen where it's just this little, it's a little square thing that attaches to a keychain. It's that small, and you can find your keys by using a cell phone. That adds the element of, when you're losing things, then everyone's emotions get wacky because we're all upset we can't find something, right? So we're trying to avoid that negative outcome because now we can easily go find the keys that were put away in the sock drawer for some reason.
Yeah, so are you putting a link to this in the show notes?
I will put a link, I'm
interested in anything that will help me keep track of my keys because I just have to admit I'm irresponsible about it. I'm terrible.
So the one thing I did with the course was I also created an online Amazon store that has different sections. So I have a section on safety under my store. I have a section on function, a section on stimulation, and all with products and links and stuff. So yeah, I will definitely provide a link to that. And if you do use my store, it's all the pricing and shipping are fulfilled by Amazon. And so they're really and I get a very small commission. So anything you can do to support the cause.
So I understand that would, feel free to purchase something. from the Together in this Amazon store, and we'll consider you a sponsor of the pod.
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
Yeah.
So, when we're talking about losing things, and I kind of talked about it earlier, was I've seen and heard people who have successfully labeled cabinets, whether that's in the kitchen or in the bedroom. Mm-hmm. One lady I know actually took pictures of her husband's clothing. So she took pictures of his actual socks. She took pictures of his actual shirts, and she used those pictures as labels. I thought that was
perfect.
I thought that was going above and beyond.
No, that's really smart, because people do read longer than their families think that they do. But if you want to go for the shortest, quickest way, pictures are always great.
Yeah, and with that said, what do you think about the use of signage in the house, like a picture of that we might normally see outside a bathroom in a public area? If your loved one struggles to find the bathroom sometimes, what if you had a sign of a bathroom?
Yeah, so I know some people are really against this, and I have actually met people who are really against this, family members who are like, I don't want my house to look like a public place. And then also, and so when I hear something like that, I tell a story of the time that I went to do an assessment of a fella, and the family had, and the floors were concrete, like unfinished concrete in this home. I was like, what's that about? That was the solution they had finally come to, because this fella could not find the bathroom.
Mm.
And so he urinated wherever he happened to be.
Okay, wow.
And so they had to tear out the flooring, the subflooring. It was concrete. So, that's a different aesthetic. Maybe a sign on the bathroom would have been a better idea. And I always come from it of a place, if we're the primary care partner, our whole job is, number one, keep our person safe, right? Number two, totally support them. That's what we're there for. So, yeah, I want my person to know where the cups are, the socks, the bathroom. Of course, I want to make life easier for my person. That's my whole role, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm a big proponent.
Yeah, and then sometimes I think people, maybe adult children, it's kind of what I'm picturing, they come into the parents' home, maybe a little overzealous because they want to help so much, and maybe they start moving things around.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Exactly. While you may see it as a danger or something, there's this concept of spatial awareness, and I tell people, once you've lived in your home for a while, you can probably walk through your home blindfolded just through touch and sound.
Right.
And but if someone moves that familiar end table that you know to reach for, to know that you're at the end of the hallway, if that's gone, all of a sudden you're going to be lost.
Right.
Because we use these familiar items and landmarks routinely in our days to help us navigate. So, be cautious that when you move something, always observe how the reaction that comes from that, right? So
yeah, so that's really important, everything that you pointed out. And also, I'll add to that, if you just haven't had a really good fight with your parent lately and you're like hoping to really piss them off, go ahead and go into their house and move stuff. I guarantee.
Exactly.
You will get the fight you've been spoiling for. So it's just, any adult, I don't care what their medical condition may be, any adult likes their stuff where they like their stuff. And just because you think that little note that says "sure do love you" on a scratch of, a piece of scratch paper is no great shakes, to me, it's a big deal.
Exactly.
Right?
And in the other instance, maybe your parent is moving in with you, and in that case, be considerate to bring in items that they're used to in their homes. That, just like we talked about moving into a memory care community, bring in items to help them adjust and adapt and feel like they're at home.
Yeah, this is where a lot of times families want to exercise that shopping bug. Like, hey, I'm going to go shopping and get all brand new everything. And just remember that's something that you like and you think is cool, but it's kind of like with change. everybody loves change, as long as we're talking about you being the one to change, not me. Right?
Good point.
If it's you remember Frasier, and the dad moves in with Frasier and that ratty old armchair, and he's like adamant he will not part with that ratty old armchair with the duct tape on the arm of it. Same principle, right?
That's really good.
Going through a lot of change and a lot of loss. Let them have the familiar. That's just not a battle worth fighting.
True. It's one thing you may want to consider changing is colors and contrast in the home, because I believe there's a lot. It could be a loss of depth perception and the ability to differentiate between items of the similar color. And what I'm picturing is that white bathroom, the white toilet against the white wall against the white floor. I've heard success stories of care partners painting the wall behind the toilet to help the toilet stick out more. Do you think that's a good idea?
Sure. Or you can even put a curio behind the toilet. Or, use, they come in sets, and I hate them, but they're the little rug that goes around the bottom of the toilet, and then the toilet lid. So don't use the one that goes around the bottom of the toilet, but use the one that goes over the lid, and that helps.
Right.
That's a nice contrast, too.
And do not put in the glow-in-the-dark seat cover, because I would imagine if I walked into the bathroom and there was a glow-in-the-dark seat cover I never had seen or grew up with, it might cause me to leave that room and pee somewhere else. So,
yeah, I didn't know that they had such a thing. Really? Glow-in-the-dark, huh?
Yeah. And wow. I think that's mostly for us guys that sometimes have problems.
Don't turn on the light?
Yeah, don't turn on the light. Yeah. We'll leave it at that. So other things with contrast, I've heard like a black or dark rug, people might think that that's a hole in the floor. And
right. So that can actually be considered a restraint when we're talking about a memory care community, because of the problems with depth perception in both Alzheimer's and dementia with Lewy bodies. So people will think that that's a giant pit, and they won't cross that threshold. So that's a no-go in your home.
Right. And the other thing I think is a little more common, maybe people, or maybe not, maybe it's because I'm in the business, but we see contrast used in the kitchen or the dining area with colored plates and utensils to help bring in that contrast and make it easier to see what they're eating.
Right. I have a whole thing on that called making mealtimes pleasurable again.
Okay.
And part of that is that research shows that, and I'm sorry, I always get the colors mixed up. I don't have it pulled up on my monitor in front of me, but it's either red plate, blue cup, or blue plate, red cup. But those specific colors increase appetite and fluid consumption.
Interesting.
So, as well as show the contrast, right? Yeah, so, very important.
So, color is really powerful, and it definitely can add to the function of the home and make the home work better in several ways for the person. And one thing as we start to wrap up, I also want to make sure people know that things need to resemble what their purpose is. So if you do go out and buy a special chair, make sure it looks like a chair that your loved one would want to sit in. Make sure your faucets have handles and not sensor control. I still do this. Right? I still remember to this day one of my first visits to one of our I'm doing air quotes, top memory care communities here. I watched this gentleman in the bathroom struggling to wash his hands. And he used everything everything in the room he shouldn't have been using to try to find water. And that was because the faucets didn't have handles and they were sensor controlled. Mm-hmm. So those things like that. I know I saw a company that developed a radio for dementia patients, and it looks absolutely nothing like a radio. So, we need things to look like their intended purpose so that they're easier to use. Or they get used.
Right, yeah, this isn't the time to go Jetsons.
Exactly. And then one other thing I want to talk about is process complexity. I want to give an example here where
Oh, you totally sound like an engineer now. What the heck is process complexity?
That's when there's too many steps to do something.
Okay.
And so, for instance, you're cooking a meal, and it tells you what ingredients you have to have. You have to know what amounts of the ingredients. You have to know what order to put the ingredients. And if you've been cooking for years and out of a cookbook, and now you struggle to follow that. A friend of mine who has dementia, her and her husband actually created a simplified cookbook for her that empowers her now to continue cooking. So that is really, they took those extra steps to help keep the kitchen functional, because that's where she felt a purpose and got enjoyment.
That's awesome. I've never heard it called, what did you call it? Process complexity?
Yeah.
But what we say as professionals, we know the cure to that, and that is called task segmentation.
Okay.
So it's breaking down something that has a lot of complex steps into 1, 2. So we want to go from let's see, what's a complex dance? A tango, maybe? I don't know. It looks complex, right? We want to break that down into a 2-step. And then we get to step 2, then we start with the next. Yeah, so that's awesome that she can continue to cook.
Yeah, I thought that was great. They do a lot together to help keep her and her home empowered, so she can live happily. And it's really very inspiring.
Yeah, isn't that what we all want? Just to live happily?
Exactly. So as we wrap up, I just want to remind our care listeners, much as I said in our care listeners, new term, our care partners, that, much as we talked about in safety of the home, you want to go through your home room by room, inside and outside, and assess how it's working for you and your loved one, so that you can make sure that it meets your needs. And that's what functionality is all about.
I like it.
All right. Well, Christy, I really appreciate you joining us for this discussion on element 2, functionality of the Dementia Friendly Home.
Always a pleasure.
All righty. Well, bye now, and I'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Adapting your home for dementia and making it dementia friendly is a lot of work, but by taking incremental steps each day, you can keep your loved one home longer, safer, and happier. Be sure to check out the episode page at togetherinthis.com/episode 49, where you'll find links to resources and a link to the Adapting Your Home for Dementia course that will help you be successful. Thank you, and I look forward to sharing more with you next week when Christy and I discuss stimulation and tips on how to keep your loved one active at home. Bye now. You've been listening to The Alzheimer's Podcast with Mike Good of Togetherness. For more information and to get the resources mentioned in this episode, visit togetherinthis.com/podcast.